The story begins by introducing William Money, a widower living with his 2 young children. In his youth, Money was a feared and ruthless gunslinger, but his life took a drastic turn when he got married. Out of love for his wife, he chose to leave behind guns, alcohol, and other vices. However, since his wife died of smallpox in 1878, Money has devoted himself to raising pigs on his farm, striving to be the man she always wanted him to be. And the story is set in Big Whiskey, Wyoming, a town ruled with an iron hand by Sheriff Little Bill Daggett. An event sets off the main plot. 2 cowboys named Davy and Mike visit the brothel owned by Skinny Dubois during a leave. There, a comment from Delilah, one of the prostitutes, irritates Mike, who reacts violently and slashes her face with a knife. Skinny and Strawberry Alice, the madam of the brothel, step in to calm things down until Little Bill arrives. The women demand justice and ask for the attackers to be hanged. But Little Bill, considering that no one was killed, decides hanging is unnecessary. Instead, he imposes a penalty. The cowboys must compensate Skinny with horses, and no whipping is involved. This decision enrages the women, who secretly collect money to offer a reward for the death of the 2 men responsible. Meanwhile, William Money is struggling with life as a farmer. His pigs are sick, and his clumsiness as he repeatedly falls into the mud while trying to catch them shows he is not cut out for this kind of life. In the midst of this routine, he receives an unexpected visit from the young Schofield kid, who wants to recruit him to kill Davy and Mike. Attracted by Money's reputation as a gunslinger, the kid promises him half of the reward, although Money initially refuses, saying he left that life behind when he got married. The offer lingers in his mind. After the young man leaves, Money, deep in thought, tries shooting at a can to test his aim. He repeatedly misses with his pistol, but manages to hit it when he switches to a shotgun. This act seems to rekindle old emotions and inner conflicts, reminding him of the man he once was. Back in Big Whiskey, the cowboys fulfill the compensation by delivering horses to Skinny. However, the women at the brothel, still furious, pelt them with stones and manure. While Mike is completely indifferent to what happened, Davy appears genuinely remorseful and, in an attempt to make amends, offers one of the horses directly to Delilah. The women, however, reject the gesture with disdain. Knowing he'll need help to complete the mission, William decides to find his old partner, Ned Logan. Before leaving, he gives his children clear instructions on where to go in case of emergency, suggesting they seek out Sally Two Trees, Ned's wife. Despite his lack of skill on horseback, Money sets off and arrives at Ned's house. There, Sally greets him coldly, disapproving of his plans, a sign of the dark path that may lie ahead. Eventually, Money and Ned head off to meet the Schofield kid, who turns out to be severely nearsighted and barely able to hit a target more than 50 yards away. This raises doubts about the young man's capabilities and the actual chances of success in their dangerous revenge mission. English Bob, a veteran British gunslinger known for his charisma, arrives in Big Whiskey with the intent to claim the reward for the cowboys. Accompanied by his biographer, Beauchamp, Bob uses the train ride to share his views on the advantages of monarchy. He cites the recent assassination attempt on President Garfield to criticize democracy, though he conveniently leaves out the assassination of the Russian Tsar, adding an ironic tone to his argument. Upon arriving in Big Whiskey, Bob encounters the stern sheriff, Little Bill Daggett, who quickly discovers Bob is carrying a concealed weapon, violating local laws. Without hesitation, Little Bill gives him a brutal beating, asserting his authority and showing his contempt for gunslingers seeking fortune. Bob is arrested along with Beauchamp, who is shocked to see the heroic figure he once admired begin to fall apart. While in jail, Little Bill discredits the grand stories Bob had told his biographer, gradually dismantling the mythic image Beauchamp had built. Fascinated by the sheriff's skill and authority, Beauchamp grows closer to Little Bill, eventually becoming his new biographer and abandoning Bob. Ultimately, English Bob is humiliatingly expelled from town under Little Bill's watchful eye and forced onto a train that takes him away. Meanwhile, William Money, Ned Logan, and the Schofield kid are on their way to Big Whiskey. Along the way, they watch the train carrying Bob leave town. However, their own arrival is far from glorious. A violent storm hits, and Money falls ill with a fever, further complicating their mission. When they arrive in town, Ned and the Schofield kid go up to the brothel to speak with the prostitutes, while Money, staying true to his attempt to change, remains downstairs. It doesn't take long for Little Bill to recognize him as another bounty hunter and give him a beating just as brutal as the one Bob received, eventually throwing him out of town. The sheriff also orders his men to find Ned and the young man. Ned and the Schofield kid manage to escape through a window and help a weakened Money mount his horse so they can flee the town. Outside Big Whiskey, Ned tends to Money as some of the prostitutes, sympathetic to their cause, offer support. Money slowly recovers, and by the time he is better, the storm has passed, leaving the ground blanketed in snow. As time goes by, Money and his group watch their targets from a distance, waiting for the right moment to act. Eventually, they spot Davy, one of the cowboys, chasing a calf with some other men. A shot hits Davy's horse, causing him to fall and leaving him trapped with a broken leg. Ned, who fired the shot, finds himself unable to finish the job and deliver the final blow. Likewise, the Schofield kid, due to his poor eyesight, is also unable to do it. That's when Money takes control of the situation. With several shots, he finally manages to kill Davy. As the cowboy lies dying, he begs for water, and Money challenges the other cowboys to give it to him, promising not to shoot if they do. They agree, and Money, true to his word, honors the deal. After the events, Ned, deeply shaken and disturbed by the act of taking a life, decides to leave the group and return home. However, on his way, he is intercepted by Little Bill's men and brought before him for interrogation. Meanwhile, security around Mike is increased. William Money and the young man position themselves strategically near the house where Mike and his protectors are hiding. At one point, Mike steps out to use the outhouse, and the kid, patiently waiting, seizes the opportunity and shoots him. Despite having previously bragged about killing 5 men, the young man confesses to Money that this was his first kill. The weight of the act overwhelms him, leading him to decide to abandon that way of life. He admits he doesn't have what it takes to be like Money. Though William offers him some whiskey to calm his nerves, the young man remains shaken. Shortly after, a prostitute arrives with the reward money, but also with the devastating news that Ned was tortured and killed after giving up information about them. Enraged and grief-stricken, Money decides to take action. He tells the young man to return home with the money, asking him to give Ned's share to his children, keep his own share, and use the rest to buy himself a decent pair of glasses. With his mind made up, Money gets on his horse and heads into town, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle. Upon arriving at the saloon, he sees Ned's corpse displayed in an open casket, accompanied by a sign warning of the consequences for those who defy the town's laws. William enters the saloon, where the townsfolk have gathered. He asks who the owner is, and when Skinny identifies himself, Money shoots him without hesitation. Little Bill criticizes him for killing an unarmed man, but Money replies that Skinny should have armed him specially after using his friend as an example. He then demands that Little Bill's men step aside. Although his shotgun misfires when he tries to shoot Little Bill, Money doesn't hesitate. He throws the gun aside and uses a pistol to shoot the sheriff and several other men who try to draw their weapons. Once the situation is under control, he warns the remaining men to leave if they don't want to die. Most comply. Money pours himself more whiskey while Beauchamp, trapped under a body, tries to hand him a rifle. Beauchamp attempts to start a conversation about what just happened, but Money's cold responses intimidate him, and he backs away. Little Bill, gravely wounded but still alive, tries to reach for his gun. Money stops him by stepping on his hand and pointing a rifle at him. The sheriff, resigned, says he doesn't deserve to die like this, to which Money coldly replies that deserving has nothing to do with it. With his last breath, Little Bill predicts they'll meet in hell, but Money simply nods before shooting him dead. Before leaving town, Money warns that he'll kill anyone who tries to shoot him, and not just them, but also their families, friends, and everything they own. Mounting his horse, he passes by Ned's body and vows to return for vengeance if his friend is not buried properly or if anyone harms the prostitutes. In the closing credits, it is revealed that William Money and his children moved to San Francisco, where they prospered in the dry goods business.